whenever you're dealing with companies with data centers, there are always going to be multiple stakeholders who are involved. So it's not just IT by any stretch. You've also got CFOs, you've got CDOs or CTOs, CIOs. They all have a very relevant input into the approach that's using going forward. CTOs especially, it's massively key that they are involved in terms of not just for now, but in terms of the approach moving forward in the next 5 or 10 years. This is Jon Clayton from Blancco Technology Group. You're watching the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast.
Hello there. I am Joshua Feinberg from the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast, and I am thrilled to have a very special guest with me here today. I'm welcoming Jon Clayton from Blancco Technology. Jon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Likewise. So I noticed in learning a little, we originally met through LinkedIn, and when I was learning a little bit more about your background, I found it super fascinating how much time you've spent in your career working on recycling and asset disposition, specifically in and around the data center industry. Can you give our audience a little bit of background on what originally led you to this career path?
Absolutely. So, as I say, ironically, I worked as an analyst for probably 10, 15 years, working my way through the career ladder as after leaving uni. So 10 or so years as an analyst, and then joined Blancco. As I joined Blancco, it's a very innovative company. It's very much going above and beyond and looking at ways that we can strive to improve the way that we do things generally. And so when I joined Blancco, it was the market leader, but it was probably about 8 or so years ago, on and off. And what enticed me about the company was the fact that not just is the aim to be sustainable, obviously, but there's a massive drive within the market to be as efficient, as effective as possible. And with Blancco, and we've seen this more and more over the last few years, wanting to reuse, wanting to resell, wanting to donate devices. It's such an interesting topic to kind of look at, and not just within the enterprise market, but within the data center as well. There's great opportunities to improve process and see where we can actually help out with day-to-day business kind of norm, as it were.
So what's super interesting about working as an analyst before approaching this, I had a little bit of that background as well, working in an enterprise IT job on Wall Street, supporting about 500 equity analysts. And you never quite look at the financial news the same way again, now that you've seen a little bit behind the curtain of what goes into the people that are quoted in the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times and CNBC. And I think it gives you a great backgrounder for understanding the impact of technology.
It's a massive thing because it helps you to see the bigger picture, I guess, more than anything. So when you're an analyst, you're dealing with data anyway. You're dealing with data and you're making it tell a story. So you're taking a piece of data, you're analyzing it, you're making business decisions and everything off of this data. And so you're a very keen kind of cog within this within the company, and decisions are based off of the analytical mind and the direction that you kind of give. But there comes a point where you've got to kind of go above and beyond on that. You've got to kind of and that's why I kind of took on the role at Blancco when I did is it was an opportunity for me to focus in on business performance, as it were, at the time, and strive to improve how we were doing things internally. But then at the same point, there's so much scope, and as is the way with any kind of company, you have your internal way of doing things, um, and then there's the external that everybody else sees. So it's about striving to improve everything internally to ensure that everything's right externally.
So, given all of this, with being now seasoned veteran enterprise account manager, working in and around the data center industry, what advice would you give to those that are contemplating or just getting started in a new career in something sales related in and around data centers?
The data center market itself is a very, very interesting one. Very, very interesting one. 20, 30 years ago, everything was on prem, everything was heavily server orientated. And over the probably, don't get me wrong, there's still legacy systems and everything out there, but we're seeing a more there's a bit more of a flexible approach to moving stuff into the cloud now, and the virtualized infrastructure. So for people that are looking to go into the data center industry and the way that we approach it, it's important that firstly that you know what you're getting yourself in for in terms of policies and regulations and everything like that that you've got to abide by in terms of strict data regs. Um, but it's also try and bring your own, um, try and tell your own story. Try and be innovative. Try to adapt yourself in a way that you're not stuck to policies that were made 30, 40 years ago. Think think about how you want to run your data center. Um, and try to just kind of think above and beyond, I guess, because it's very easy to just stick to old policies or stick to policies that are already in place, and by doing so, you miss out on so many opportunities to either be more efficient or be more effective or be more sustainable. And that's where Blancco kind of comes into this. There's an opportunity to be sustainable through your data center, if you say, and so trying to move away from that whole destroying and shredding of devices.
Yeah, I love that. The idea of being in a position to impact change, being
Yeah,
the agent of change, helping to spearhead transformation. So many times when I speak with people within the industry, one of the hardest things to overcome isn't the technology, it's the people part of it, the
yeah.
culture. And
It's very much that. It's very much that. You've got to have someone championing the change. So you've got to be charismatic. You've got to be personable. You've got to be you got to think above and beyond to really kind of drive it. And um, what we're thinking is that these people that are going into the data centers now, or are looking to go into the data centers now, that's going to be the future of those data centers in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And so the last thing you want is to be behind the times in terms of the way that you approach it. So be flexible, be open, be don't be afraid to look and work outside the box, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Just be open to what's out there in the market, because if you don't change, or if you just follow policy for the next 20, 30, 40 years, the reality is that your competitors are going to make that change. And then your competitors, sorry, will move ahead of you in the market in terms of being efficient, in terms of being effective, and you fall behind.
So that's great advice, great playbook for someone that's brand new to a sales related role in and around data centers. What about a colleague that maybe you worked with 10 years ago and you run into at a conference and they just seem really burnt out and frustrated and they come to you for advice and say, Jon, I have no idea what I should do next. I'm thinking about a career change. I'm thinking about pivoting. What advice would you give to someone like that on how to get back on track?
I think it's a great kind of question to ask, and I think within any career, you've got to look at the way that you're approaching things yourself. Anyway, as an analyst, I'm self-critical anyway, so I'm constantly evaluating how I could do things better, how I could improve. And that happens in my everyday life. And so if somebody comes to me and says, "Look, I'm not happy with how I am or my career, etc., etc." Just take a little bit of time for yourself. Just take a little while, relax, take a break, and kind of see how you can strive to improve yourself. You know, take a bit of time and just really think about what you want and how you can strive to improve what you do. At the end of the day, even within data centers, even within any organization that you work for, there's going to be ways that you can improve. There's always going to be ways that you can improve, is but only look at things that ultimately you can impact. There's no point worrying about things that you yourself cannot have a physical impact on, because um, that's one of the major flaws that people kind of get stuck on, is the fact that you have to learn to let go of situations and strive to improve the factors that you can actually influence. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You for sure have to pick your battles. You for sure
Yeah.
have to focus. And as much as it's probably cliched at this point, the objectives and key results, the OKRs that so many people are, it's a great forcing factor that says, okay, this is the top 3 list, and for aligning everyone on the same page. Kind of zooming out at Blancco's role in the enterprise infrastructure, digital infrastructure business, and as a disposition sustainability. When you look at that broader category, what do you see as some of the best practices that others are doing really well in the space, and where do you think that there's an opportunity to improve at the macro level within that segment within enterprise IT?
So if we look at the market as a whole, there's roughly about 60 million devices that people get rid of every single year, whether they be within data center, whether it's end user computing. 60 million devices. Probably 25 million of them are done by Blancco or um, or through our partners. There's probably another 5-10 million that's done by competitors or freeware. The reality is that even then, that still leaves 25 million devices worldwide per year that end up um, in landfill, either being shredded or being destroyed. And there is a massive opportunity out there in terms of reuse, in terms of donations, in terms of resale, in terms of how people can be more efficient and more effective with how they deal with everyday devices. And um, especially with the ITAM solutions that are out there. So uh, with generally 95 to 99% of all businesses that are out there will have a ITAM solution in place where there is an opportunity to become more efficient and more effective with the way that you are dealing with your assets. And Blancco, for instance, has the ability to do remote erasure using those ITAM solutions. And that then removes a large kind of chain of custody issue that's out there in terms of um, devices that are being returned back to HQ, or buyback schemes where people want to employees want to buy that device without it going back to site. There's a real opportunity in multiple use cases where we can really improve the way that we go about things. And from a sustainability play, um, companies or enterprises that are out there are wanting to become more sustainable. And by not shredding devices, by not throwing them into the landfill, here is a great opportunity where we can do that.
What jumps off the page to me is I think about just the school opportunity.
Yep.
If you think about all the school boards and private schools and STEM programs and enrichment programs that are pounding the table about STEM everywhere, we need to make kids ready for the future. That equipment plus some basic curriculum tweaks, I look at even in the data center industry as a whole, they've made great strides in the last few years on trying to get teenagers excited about going into careers in and around the data center industry. But it seems there's an enormous opportunity to make it more tangible by infusing, and CompTIA has been at this for a couple of years. They've done a reasonably good job of getting curriculum into high schools and colleges, but yeah, for sure, what could be more exciting to teens going through these programs, contemplating careers, that getting this huge batch of hard drives and system units and servers and stuff that's not 10, 15 years old, but more probably 2, 3, 4 years old.
Oh,
and let's set
yeah.
up a lab.
I think not even just that, but it's before you even get to that as well. It's making sure that the people that are out there that the don't have these devices anyway have got the opportunity to use them. The reality is that these people are our futures. They are the future um, of us moving forward over the next 20, 30 years. So if we have a way that um, we can help to improve them by getting them technology, um, and getting them using the technology at an early stage, um, and you reduce the risk from an enterprise standpoint. You know that it has been erased. You've got a full audit trail that proves it. All it needs is a new OS to go back on the device, and it's good to then be used within whether it's a donation, whether it's going back to schools, etc., etc. A device that's been erased, especially if it's an SSD or that sort of thing, it's got life in it for years to come, and there's a great opportunity for people to learn how to do things on those devices, or as you say, um, train them in terms of engineering, in terms of technology, etc., about how they can build a career out of it in the next 5, 10 years. There's so much opportunity here, and it's about going out to the market and kind of going, you know what, there is no risk here for you. If you erase the device by doing it yourselves, or by a specialized partner, you get the device back. There's no OS on it. You pass it off to the school or whatever, they put the new OS back onto the device. It's good to be used. It's there's so much opportunity that's out there, and um, it's about trying to show how it can be done at a quick and easy level without necessarily having the need for a IT technician to do it for you.
I think it's even part of it may be a cultural change among the teachers of training the trainer, but that can be done as well too. Google Classroom, Apple historically has been fantastic at this. Microsoft has been fantastic at this. A lot of technology companies have great learning and development and customer education teams where they're already creating great onboarding, and they're creating these training materials for partners and for end users. It's just another persona, and it's another priority of saying, okay, we have this great academy, we have this great program. Let's repurpose this for a high school teacher, for a middle school teacher. Let's roll it out. But yeah, it's priorities of making good use of assets and resources, and seeing this as an investment in who's going to be in the workforce in 5-10 years from now.
Absolutely. But the thing is that enterprise nowadays are getting marked on their sustainability. They really are. And if they want to be more sustainable, yes, there's so many other projects that they can do. But a quick and easy one that they can implement would be the use of donating or reselling equipment. And what there is out there in the market is that there are sustainability dashboards and stuff like that that actually show, the impact of what you're doing with donating and erasing devices. It's there to see. You've got the data there at hand. And so if you're being marked on how your business is going to be sustainable moving forward, here's one way that you can do so.
And maybe that's part of the solution too, is that you're moving just beyond the teens that are showing interest in technology, but promoting this greater conversation about how to teach sustainability, how to bring ESG into the conversation even before kids get to college or university level, and what that curriculum looks like. And then that becomes super multidisciplinary, bringing in all kinds of physical science and math and communication skills beyond just the technology reuse.
Absolutely. It takes you away from your standard kind of your standard teaching, as it were. But it's about teaching them at the earliest opportunity how to use these bits and pieces. The reality is, if you get students early enough taught how to use devices, or how to engineer, or how to work within a data center at a young age, these are the people that will be the future in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
I think, again, I think the industry is making really good strides in the last 2, 3, 4 years in creating awareness that these careers even exist, and that there's a lot of high-paying jobs, and it's going to be a very, very high growth area in the coming years, as Jensen Huang predicts all the AI factories that are going to be needed, and Michael Dell predicts all the AI factories that are going to be built to satisfy all of this demand.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.
Turning to another topic on a more tactical level, with what you do on a day-to-day basis for Blancco in growing awareness and your work as an enterprise account manager. What do you think the future of sales looks like in the data center industry over the next 2+ years? What do you think is going to change? What do you think is going to stay the same?
I think we've already seen a massive change within the market in the last 5-10 years. In the last 10 years, as we stated previously, everything used to be on-prem. Everything was previously on-prem. People wanted to have servers, SAN, storage arrays, everything like that on site. Everything like that. Over the last 5 years, we've seen I've seen a much larger change, especially within the UK market, towards a more virtualized data center approach. So with AWS, etc. And I think that we're going to see much more of a hybrid approach to the data centers as we move forward in terms of that. The reality is that data's still got to go somewhere. And with the amount of data that there is growing exponentially, data being fed into the cloud seems more realistic rather than having it on-prem. However, as is always the way, there's always going to be a cost involved. And with more data becomes more virtual machines, and more virtual machines becomes more expense. I guess from a day-to-day Blancco perspective, we're very lucky in that we've got virtualized infrastructure or solutions for virtualized infrastructure. So we still offer the ability to do a virtual machine erasure, for instance, or file erasure, because there's still going to be that need for our solutions within that environment. But I think what you'll potentially see in the next few years with the physical infrastructure is that there will still be an element of physical infrastructure. You'll still see servers and storage arrays, but it will be a much more of a hybrid approach rather than purely on-prem. There will still be some servers and stuff because of the security aspect, but I'd hope to see that it would go towards a more virtualized environment moving forward.
When I think about the implications as well with virtualization and cloud versus on-prem, and I think about there's been so many conversations now coming up in the last year or two about repatriation. Should we bring things out of a public cloud and back into co-location? Do you find from a tactical perspective, are you seeing more CFOs getting involved in these conversations beyond just IT?
Absolutely. There's whenever you're dealing with companies with data centers, there are always going to be multiple stakeholders who are involved. So it's not just IT by any stretch. You've also got CFOs, you've got CDOs or CTOs, CIOs. They all have a very relevant input into the approach that's using going forward. CTOs especially, it's massively key that they are involved in terms of not just for now, but in terms of the approach moving forward in the next 5 or 10 years. So when it comes to infrastructure and the way that data is held, it is massively important that you get the buy-in of multiple stakeholders as to how you're going to be driving change within the business moving forward. It's massively important that you champion it and that you get multiple stakeholders on board to help drive that decision.
You mentioned something earlier as well. You mentioned some work as an analyst giving you really interesting perspective on solving business problems. You also mentioned some work with an AI related company
Mm.
uh, in between being more involved in asset disposition and sustainability and erasure issues. Bringing that back together with AI, when you think about your daily routine as being an enterprise account manager, how has AI changed what you do on a daily basis so far? If we think about that, we're still in the relatively early stages of adoption of AI.
For me personally, it hasn't changed my day to day massively, if I'm completely honest. There are elements where it has, but in terms of my absolute day to day, everything has stayed relatively normal, kind of at the minute. Um, don't get me wrong, out in the market, you see the use of chatbots, and you look at AI and how it can make you more efficient. You can see it, for instance, in ways that you can strive to roadmap things moving forward. So, for instance, companies out there are making use of intelligent business routing and that sort of thing, where you build in workflows on your process. And by using those workflows, you can automate a lot of process. And within data centers, within end user computing, just generally in terms of decision making, if you've got ways of removing out risk, then that's a great way of doing it. However, that's not to say that if we take a chatbot, for instance, it is not going to be absolutely perfect for everyone's everyday questions. So that's why you see from a technological standpoint that there's a lot of positive stuff out there in the market about AI, but there's also um, a fair bit um, of criticism as well, where they're trying to well, where I think AI needs to be brought in alongside the human aspect as well. So it's not removing the human aspect completely. It's there to help bring it in line more than anything.
So when you think about AI in your daily routine and how it gets a lot more tangible with the tools, the software, the apps that you use to do your job well and stay productive at Blancco, if you were to get a email next week from someone in your IT team that says we're kind of surveying and auditing what's working well, we're looking for underutilized, what are the 2, 3, 4 apps that you use that are just, you cannot take them away under any circumstances? They're favorites, and they're completely untouchable when it comes to thinking about to switching.
I mean, for me, on a daily basis, I'm constantly using LinkedIn. It's one of the major apps that I use.
LinkedIn.
But even now, when you post on LinkedIn, you can, as part of the regulation on LinkedIn, you can get AI to rewrite your post. So to make it more readable or to make it a bit more tangible for the market. But again, it's about the risk versus reward kind of structure. I'm open to seeing how AI can improve my daily routine and the way that I do things. I think you've got to be open to what's out there. And obviously Blancco will make our own internal decisions about how we move forward with AI from a internal standpoint. But for me personally, um, I do use it to some extent, AI, but it's not on a massive regular basis. It's probably more used behind the scenes when you're dealing with your um, your phone contracts and stuff like that. Uh, you're talking to a virtual assistant on that. That's all AI based before you speak to an actual person. So
Yeah, it's super interesting as well, because in the work that I've done with AI SaaS startups, a lot of getting people comfortable with AI was getting them to realize that they're already using it. They just don't know it. Every time you go to turn on Netflix and it's giving you suggestions on what you should watch next, or you go to Amazon and you're looking at a TV, or you're looking at some household purchase or something, and it's making recommendations on what it's all there. Google Maps, Waze, all based on machine learning and AI.
Absolutely, it's all there, but there's still a security risk when you kind of think of it. You kind of go, actually, that you are using AI here, and here. Suddenly they go, oh, okay, I didn't realize that sort of thing. So it's about making it the norm, I guess, rather than hidden away.
So bringing this back full circle, part of the goal of the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is introducing the audience to best practices on the path forward. A lot of the work that I do with DCSMI, the Data Center Sales and Marketing Institute, is about elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market professionals in the growth of the industry. Clearly, you've done a phenomenal job of positioning yourself as a consultant, as a teacher, as a trusted advisor, and have already transcended the traditional definition of someone in technology sales that just thinks about the transaction and when can we book a meeting, when can we hop on a call. You very for sure see yourself as actively involved in transformation and education and cultural change. With that in mind, any ideas on who or from what company I should look to interview next and feature on the podcast?
So, as you were mentioning, for me, I don't class myself as a normal salesperson, mainly because I've had that analytical side and everything previous. And so for me, I'm always looking out for the customer and where they can be the best that they can be. So, and that helps because you put yourself into the minds of the consumer and essentially what they're going through and the problems that they may well be facing. One person who I think would be extremely good for you to look at interviewing is a gentleman called David Foxon, who works who's a consultant for a company called Sam Beast Consulting. They are an ITAM specialist consultancy, and he has his own YouTube account and such like, where he specializes in ITAM and about process, and that would be an extremely good one, I think, to look at and to see how his insights can be spread across the market.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much. Yeah, I have this thought process that going forward, the sales professional is going to look a lot more like a big four consultant and advisor. And the whole idea when people talk to me about branding is they're still thinking of fonts and their color chart and their brand guide. But the reality is, like, brand is everything that's going on when you're not in the room. And given that sales professionals are typically not involved in a huge percentage of these conversations anymore, the content stands in for you. So to the extent that people are willing to watch and hungry for question and answer and how-to types of content, and it's the best way to have surface area, the virtual representation of your ideas.
Absolutely, it's a massive market. It's a great go-to, and a YouTube channel or that sort of thing. It opens the doors to actually seeing it in person, and you actually get a bit of you see the person's charisma, you see their actual their thought process and their actual drive, rather than just seeing a post on LinkedIn where very much a message can be lost. If you got a YouTube channel and you're actually kind of really going on about it, and you're emphasizing it, and you can see the look on their face as they're actually doing it, it's a great opportunity. And say David will be a fantastic one to really kind of speak to.
It's all about educating and building trust, and whether it's webinars, whether it's live streams, whether it's long form video, or the attention starved watching reels and shorts, it's all about educating and building trust. So by the time you get to the conversations, a lot of the heavy lifting has already been done.
Absolutely.
Jon, what's the best way for someone to keep up with what you're working on, follow what's working on at Blancco? Do you have any favorite places that you direct people to?
So they can come to myself on LinkedIn. I'm more than open to having discussions and everything like that on LinkedIn. Very open on that. So you can go to blancco.com and you can see our products. There's contact us and everything like that on there, and you can see what we do. As say, Blancco's quite big on LinkedIn, so there'll be white papers that are on there. There will be different bits and pieces or shows that we are going to. So by all means, follow us, come and have a chat, and we'll see how we can help you guys moving forward.
I still find myself reminding people that LinkedIn has essentially become the 7/24 365 conference that never shuts off. You can have a great presence for 2, 3, 4 days at a time, and then people go back to their daily routines, and it's LinkedIn that's going to always be there. And it's strange. Most people are thinking that, oh, well, it's during traditional business hours. No, there's sometimes people up in the middle of the night, their local time, that are trying to solve a problem, and they turn to LinkedIn. There's sometimes people on a holiday weekend that are trying to figure out something for their career at work, and it's LinkedIn.
The reality is you can't get away from it. You cannot get away from it. So even if you send a message to myself at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll still reply to it when I get up in the morning. That's absolutely fine. You don't escape the rat race on it. So we're very much a 24/7 company, 365. So please come and have a chat, and we're open to seeing how we can help.
On that, thank you so much, Jon, for joining me today. I've been speaking with Jon Clayton, Enterprise Account Manager for Blancco Technology, and Jon's been sharing all this phenomenal insight on his career in and around storage and technology and the life cycle of technology assets and a better path forward. Thanks so much, Jon.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for your time.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.